Hello there, I'm Fintusius and welcome to this week's new episode of, well, a weekly new PTR build. If I may look tired, that is, well, because I am. I was just heading to bed at this point because it's 1:30 AM here in Europe and, yeah, a new patch news just hit their servers and, well, they're not gonna read themselves, aren't they? So having said that, let's just jump straight into them, and I promise you this time around I will not make this a 50-minute video. I hope. Yeah, I hope. Alright, so let's have a look. Let's start out with Demon Hunters. What we can see here is that this is just going to be a timer change on the new chaotic input talent, which is something we've covered last week. So now it's going to last 20 seconds, no big changes here, which means it is still going to be effectively useless because it doesn't debuff neither Fel or Shadow. I'll be not going over the details about that spell because it was covered last week and I just repeated myself. Let's continue. Cover of Darkness has been removed. Cover of Darkness is the big darkness of Demon Hunters, which is actually an extremely good talent, and the fact that it's removed is going to hurt them a lot because it was like it helps them in the defensive, with like their defensive capabilities, which was definitely the worst thing about them. So having this removed is going to hurt them a lot. But let's just look at what we have next, because it got actually changed instead of being removed. So now the radius of darkness is increased by 4 yards and its duration by 2 seconds. Honestly, this is actually a substantial nerf to that talent, because the way it worked is that, as you can see, it increased the darkness effect by 50%. Yeah, it carried quite a lot of cases for Demon Hunters for them to just stay alive longer, and just increasing the range and the duration by 2 seconds, but the effect itself is worse. It's not exactly as powerful as it used to be, in my opinion. It's not worth the talent anymore. However, don't be afraid, Demon Hunters, because I can tell you a lot of buffs are coming, and I'm not even going to mention all the buffs that were already done a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and even 3 weeks ago. Demon Hunters just kept getting buffs. This is probably the first PvP nerf. But yeah, let's continue. Demonic Origins, which is the talent that reduced the cooldown of Metamorphosis by 2 minutes, got buffed. It got buffed. It only reduces the duration of Metamorphosis by 10 seconds now, which means Metamorphosis is now a 20-second CD on a 2-minute cooldown if you play that talent. I'm not sure if you're going to play it in 3s, but in 2s it appears to be extremely strong, especially with the removal of the Darkness talent. I don't think you're going to play with that talent anymore, which would technically mean you're just going to go full all-in pure DPS mode. Like, you're not going to take defensive talents because they've added so much DPS talents that I guess you've become the ultimate glass cannon at this point. So, yeah, this is definitely much better than it was. It's pretty scary. Is it going to be worth a PvP talent? We're going to have to see, well, once the patch releases, right? Because everything is being added all the time, but this is definitely much better than it was. So Detainment got nerfed by a second, which is, again, it's technically a nerf, because at the same time, it's the cooldown increase to 60 seconds got removed, which means Imprison is now a 45-second cooldown. But most of the time you were using Imprison as a way to counteract enemy cooldowns, which were usually, well, 1-minute cooldowns, right? So you saw like an Enhancement Shaman's Doom Winds, you used Imprison on them, you saw the red popping his damage, you also used Imprison in between the Divine Toll and the Final Reckoning, right? So the fact that the cooldown reduction was removed, sorry, the cooldown increase got removed, but at the cost of losing 1 second of the cage is, it's a 50-50. It's technically a buff in some cases, but it's a nerf. I would say it's a nerf in all others. It's definitely not bad, but it's not mandatory to take, I would say. And why? Because let's have a look at the rest, which is Eye of Leotheras, which got removed as of right now, which was very cool in Legion, and then never really saw real play again, because of how the meta changed. So we will see if it's going to come back in another form in a week or two. Let's continue. we have a new PvP talent. And this one is going to be pretty big, actually. So, Chaos Nova, Eye Beam, and Fell Rush gain bonuses when striking one target. So now that we said that, if you could think about the new buffed Metamorphosis in 2s, right? It's going to be quite a powerhouse in 2s at the moment, because Chaos Nova is gonna be a 5-second stun. It is still dispellable, it's still a magical effect, but it is a 5-second stun. So it depends what combo you would be playing, because like ideally you use Chaos Nova on 2 targets, but in this case you might want to use it on 1 target. And maybe you're going to be using it with the Imprison, like the upgraded Imprison, which is not going to be on a lower cooldown. So it's going to create some different forms of gameplay. But yeah, Eye Beam is going to make a debuff to take % increased damage for 10 seconds, and Fell Rush is going to generate 40 Fury. So if you take all of that combined, and the fact that Demon Hunters are getting buffed, like baseline by 15 to 20% of all their abilities, like from a PvE standpoint, but this is like buffing the entire class, so it's going to work in PvP as well. And then they're also getting buffed by having the new legendary power, the Nightfall legendary power, which is also something that was covered, which allows for, you know, getting the Hunt combo into the Immolation Aura, into the Fell Rush twice, actually. And this is also going to work with the Fell Rush. So this makes that combo even stronger. So all I can say is that Demon Hunters, well, they're still going to be, well, not exactly tanky, but that is the whole point of them not being exactly tanky. And damn, I'm not sure anymore. I think they brought back the evasion effect, the dodge effect when you're using Blade Dance. I really don't remember anymore. All I'm saying is that Demon Hunters has been receiving buffs and buffs and buffs, and that Darkness change, even though it is a pretty substantial nerf overall, Demon Hunters will still come out way ahead of where they were, and you can expect them to be actually very, very, very good in 2s, and definitely more than viable in 3s. You can definitely expect a lot of changes in the meta in the 9.1, but you can say that about every single class in spec, because there's been just so many changes at this point that I don't even remember what exactly was changed, because, well, it's just fluctuating all that time. Having said that, let's move on. I just say I'm not going to make it 50 minutes, but I'm now looking at the timer, it's already 8, so gotta speedrun this one out, at least a little bit more. Alright, Unending Hatred is just in wording changes, so nothing to cover here. Alright, so TLDR, make a Demon Hunter alt. I don't think it's going to be a bad decision. I will definitely make mine, because I like to play Demon Hunters, because honestly, if you've never played one, it's actually pretty fun. People can meme about it, but it's fun to jump around sometimes. Maybe that's because I play a red Paladin most of the time, so that's why I like mobility. But yeah, definitely going to be really, really strong in the next season. So just be prepared. Haha. Alright, let's go into Druids. And Starburst has been changed in top. The tooltip of Starburst has been changed for the 3rd time. Nothing to cover here. This is also wording change. Alright, Freedom of the Herd, PvP talent. Which is a talent that, well, wasn't really played because there was no reason to. Now it's going to reduce the cooldown of Stampeding Roar by 1 minute. This means that Stampeding Roar in PvP is going to be a 60-second cooldown now. I've already opened up this here to see. Yes, it is going to be a 60-second cooldown. This means that you have a Stampeding Roar that clears all routes every 1 minute. What does this mean? Well, this means that you can get out your healer friend from the root beam of the Boomkin. So this is going to be a very situational talent, but when used properly, is actually going to be pretty good. At the very least, it is something that you should definitely consider. And with all the buffs that Feral is also receiving, Feral is looking in a great place. Really is. So, but it's not over yet, so let's just continue with this. King of the Jungle now stacks to 4 times, which is going to increase your movement speed and healing received by 5% every stack. Which means you're gonna just, you know, Ferrari run around on the arena and just rip everybody. And why this is going to be important is because we have to remember Wicked Claws, which by the way is getting nerfed, as we can see, but just a tiny bit. You're just going to run around the arena and cast Rip on every single target all the time, so that way you are like the Ferrari Feral, and you have the healing debuffs on, well, basically everybody on the team. You're also going to be super fast, you're going to receive more healing. And what does this mean? This means that you can actually play some kind of rot comps as a Feral now, like just playing just Shadow Priest Feral, like Shadow Priest Affliction Warlock, is probably going to be ridiculously strong. It really will be. Mark my words. Mark my words. If you don't want to play Demon Hunter, then just go and make a Feral. They're also going to be really good. They are already decent. Now it's just pushing them to like S+ tier, I want to say. Leader of the pack got a bit nerfed because the heal now is going to proc every 8 seconds instead of 6 seconds. However, having said that, the change is that sorry, I lost my words. Like it used to be a melee and range critical chance. I haven't tested this one just yet because I wanted to go over the things more quickly. And now it is supposed to be direct attack. So what from what I understand is that this is not exactly a nerf because a direct attack should probably be considered a spell. So I'm not sure if it didn't proc from spells before, and if it didn't and now it does, then it really would be pretty good. It's a lot of pretties. But don't quote me on that, this requires further testing. But even if you're not going to use this one for casters, then yeah, like you have to play Wicked Claws now. And you probably, it's really good idea to play King of the Jungle, which means the third one, well, it's up for you to decide, but there's a lot of cool talents you could be picking. So let's move on to Savage Momentum. And this one I actually managed to test because I was really curious. Interrupting a spell with Skull Bash reduces the cooldown of Tiger's Fury, Survival Instinct, and Tiger Dash. So Tiger Dash is a talent, it's a mobility talent for Feral Druids. I mean for Druids overall actually. Which means Tiger Dash is like this super mega Ferrari buff, which is like a 200% movement speed increase for 4 seconds, and like it decays rapidly. So what I was wanting to say is that it's on the same row as Renewal, which is something a lot of Ferals are using. So is this going to be good, bad? I'm not sure. It's definitely going to it's going to be interesting to play in some cases. All I'm trying to say is that Tiger Dash is a 45-second cooldown if you play with it, which is going to reduce it to 35 if you actually make the interrupt, which means you can, yeah, you can essentially, if you're not missing your kicks, you can make it like a 20-second cooldown, right? But do you really need Tiger Dash, and do you really need to have it on a 20-second cooldown? I honestly doubt it, so it's like a change, yeah. Cool. Not a big deal. Let's just move on. The PvP talent from Guardian Druids, it's the same. It only got specified that it's going to be over 8 seconds. So this is something you'll probably see from Guardian Druids in RPGs. After, well, they're being sitting on their flag, like on their base, they're just going to reset all their cooldowns basically. So it's just going to be superb talents for Guardian Druids PvP, and don't meme about it because, well, it is actually very played. And yeah, they are already getting more popular than Demon Hunter tanks at the moment, assuming you actually play RPGs still. So yeah, you should just a very, very good talent. So the Kyrian legendary power, I'm not going to cover because this looks just like a lot of tooltips errors. So this is not going to go live 100%. You're not going to get buffed your crits by 50% or versatility by 50%. There's just no way. So we're just going to move on from this. And let's move on to Hunters. High explosive trap got a change. I have no idea what's the change. It's probably just like a coding thing behind the scenes. So not going to talk about this. Kindred Spirits is something, that just got changed to level. So no change at all. Just as a reminder, this is a new talent for Hunters, which is going to gain their pets are going to gain quite a cool ability, depending on what the pets are going to be, what type of pets they're going to be played, but this was overall a very big buff to Hunters in terms of that talent choice. So yeah, Hunters are also getting better. So now, as you can see, the math is here. Ferals are getting super strong. Hunters are getting buffed. Disc is getting mega buffed. Yeah, jungle is going to be ridiculously strong next season. And if that wasn't clear, jungle is the name of that comp I just talked about. The Beast Within got nerfed to 10%. I guess it was considered to be too strong with all the pets. I'm not sure if it's... I'm still not sure if it's going to be played or not. But I was already covered in the past. And this is just a wording change. It is not a wording change. This is because it is a wording change, actually. Is it a wording change? I'm not sure. Let's just start over with this one. Call in health one of your dismissed cunning pets for 10 seconds. Your current pet is dismissed to rest and heal 30% of maximum health, which is basically a safe pet PvP talent. And forgive me, but I do not know if that was covered in the past or this is even... You know what? I'll just have a look at this. I'll just have a look. And no, this was indeed added, and I forgot this was added. All right. So this is basically helping hunters out if they're scared of their hunter pets dying, which is something, well, actually happens a lot of the times in Shadowlands arenas. So it's going to make it immune, I'm going to assume. It's going to make your pet immune for those 10 seconds, and it's going to just replace the pet. So you can just... They're just going to help your pet. It's going to probably recover more than 30% of its health, because like if you have hots and heals and whatever, when it comes out like out of hiding or something, it's gonna get it's gonna recover like 40 to 50 minutes. Sorry, 40 to 50% HP. So yeah, a very good talent. Probably a lot of hunters are going to like playing with it. Because yeah, it really sucked when you lost your pet as a hunter, and honestly, it was really easy to lose your pet as a hunter because, well, people liked killing it because it was really easy. And when you have no pet as a hunter, you're basically, well, it's game over if you cannot resummon it. Skeleton nerf to the Lego we've already covered in the past. Mage talents here have been changed absolutely with no information whatsoever. So we're not going to even cover mages this week because those are just wording changes. So let's move on to monks. We have a new monk PvP talent, which is going to be called Perpetual Paralysis. Paralysis range is reduced to 6 yards, but spreads to 2 new enemies when removed. What does this mean? I don't really know. Actually, I do. But the question is, how far is it going to spread out? So basically, paralysis is going to become basically melee spell, right? 6 yards is just like a melee range. But it spreads to 2 new enemies when removed. Realistically speaking, I'm not sure. Like, even if you were to spread it to others, like, this is some 300 IQ talent, basically. It's going to help out with some setups. It needs to not get cleaved down. It needs to be in melee range. Like, if you were to do it on the healer, or like, it really depends on how far it spreads. Because if it doesn't really spread that far, I don't really see this being super useful. But I may be wrong. It's the kind of talent that feels like it's not great, but once you actually play against it, it becomes pretty oppressive. Yeah, now I had a second thought, actually a third thought. This talent basically allows you to paralysis the healer, right? In the 3 scenario, by the way, I'm talking here. Then push onto the enemy healer. And, keep applying the pressure on the DPS. And then you can just push into the healer and do a swap before it paralyzes the other 2 DPSs. Yeah, I'm not sure. It doesn't really feel realistic. It's just like a mega setup comp. And when I say comp, I mean talent. So you'd have to play with like a mage, like monk mage would probably make it work. Yeah. That's the best thing I can say. If you have like a mega setup talent and like no real cleave damage, you can probably make it work. But overall, it's probably not going to be that popular. I don't think so, at least. I might be wrong. The Wind Waker has been removed. And when I say removed, that just got changed, basically. So let's have a look at this. Your movement enhancing abilities increases wind walking on allies by 10%, stacking 2 additional times. This means that whenever you're going to use a roll, you're just going to buff your allies with movement speed. If you're going to roll twice, you're going to have 3 stacks, from what I can understand. This means that movement and pairing effects are removed at 3 stacks. So if you just double roll, you're gonna remove your entire team's, well, movement impairing effects. This just feels like either going to be an RBG talent or some gimmicks. Like, I don't think this is going to get a lot of play. There's no way you want to use double roll just to get your allies out of movement impairing effects. However, having said that, if you were to play with another melee, like a Death Knight, for example, that is usually pretty slow, if you happen to get that buff and it still stays for a couple seconds and it's not actually doing double roll instantly, right? Then maybe it's going to be interesting. But again, just like with the paralysis thing, it requires more information about the range, about the buff uptime, but it might be technically playable. It might be technically playable if you could remove stuff from your fellow Death Knight. But yeah, I doubt it, but it's just me thinking out loud. All right, that is just wording changing. That is a wording change, and that is a wording change. All right, off to Paladins. And Light's Grace increases the healing done by your Flash of Light by 25%. This actually I remember. Don't worry, this is already what we had last week or like 2 weeks ago. It was bugged in game, or like the tooltip was bugged. I don't remember. This was already covered. Nothing changed here. Divine Resonance, which is the is going to be the nightmare of the next season if it doesn't get changed by the time it gets released. But this again is just wording changes, so nothing to cover here. And so is Season of Plenty, which was the buff to Night Fae Paladins, which made the Night Fae Paladins, well, technically playable. They're already technically playable, but it is the same problem as we have with the Kyrian Paladins right now, and in the next season, which is, why would you want to play something that is technically playable when you can play something that is just good everywhere, and is not technically playable, it is just good everywhere, like PvE, PvP, tanking, and with a new legendary, with the mass AoE dispels, like, yeah, it is going to be very hard to compete against the Kyrian Paladins at least in PvP. And actually in PvE too, if that legendary stays the way it is right now. Alright, off to Priests. We got a 2-second debuff timer for Blaze of Light, because we didn't have it last time. And Inner Light and Shadow, which is basically going to be this new PvP talent, which is going to be like a new stance swapping like Warriors, right? And we didn't have the duration. Sorry, we did have the duration, but then I didn't cover it again. And now it's literally a stance swap, because it has 6-second cooldown between the healing spell stance and the spell damage stance. There's like no debuff to this, so it's not a big deal. It's not like you're losing spell damage or atonement healing. It's just going to be, well, I guess you not just spam the ability like off global or on a global. No biggie. It is still going to be a really cool talent, and Disc Priests are looking very good in the next season. Because, well, Blizzard is actively trying to make Disc the go-to PvP spec, I'm going to assume, but at the same time, they're still doing changes to Holy Priest, and they're not exactly dead. And this is exactly why we're going to be looking at Holy Priest here. So I've read this and checked this before. Greater Heal has been removed. The wording any has been removed. This means that Greater Heal is still going to ignore healing reduction effects, but it's not going to reduce. Sorry, it's not going to ignore dampening. That is the big difference with this PvP talent, which is probably the Blizzard's intention was since day one. I'm going to assume they never thought about Greater Heal being an anti-dampening thing back in BFA, which is exactly why it was, amongst other things, why it was like so precious. Sorry, not oppressive to play against. All right, it might see some play. I would say that it really wouldn't, but I know what's coming up next, so you're about to see. So Sanctified Ground has been removed. It was like a big zone, AoE zone. You were placing down on the ground that you could cast within it and not get interrupted. But realistically speaking, you had like other PvP talents that were so good you couldn't even fit this one, which wasn't really bad anyway. But now it got reworked. Holy Word Sanctify, which is the Holy Word AoE spell that is not exactly a lot of healing in PvP. So now this can definitely see proper usage. Let me read this one out first. Holy Word Sanctify blesses the ground with divine light, causing all allies who stand within to be immune to all silence and interrupt effects. lasts for 5 seconds. This one is actually ridiculously good. Holy Word Sanctify can now be used as an anti-interrupt or silence effect. It's an AoE healing spell that you cast just like a blizzard, like you would cast a blizzard as a mage. You know, it's like a targeted AoE ground effect. And you also reduce its cooldown by casting Holy Priest spells on top of the legendary, which already helps you reduce those cooldowns. And on top of your cooldown, your healing cooldown, which most Holy Priests play, which is Apotheosis, which also resets your holy words, and you can reduce it even further when you're using it. And now my voice is super high pitched at this point because there's so many layers. Anyway, having said that, this talent alone makes Holy Priest, well, they're not dead. I can guarantee you they are not dead. If that talent does anything, is that it allows Holy Priest to play with double casters in 3s once again. And RPGs, whatever, because you're gonna be able to immune your team to interrupts and silence effects quite often, actually, quite often. Like you can set it up reliably pretty often, like no joke. I would say this requires a nerf. It is too strong in its current form. 5 seconds probably going to be too strong with the amount of resets you can do with Sanctify. But we'll see. Definitely don't cross out Holy Priests. If you don't like playing against them, well then bad news. You might see them in 3s once again with caster cleaves. It was really good. It is really good. Alright, Spirit of Redemption is now an active 2-minute cooldown, but once again, as with the other talents, even though this is technically cool, you have other much more important choices. In this case, it's going to be Sanctified Ground, right, and Greater Fate, which means you only have a third talent choice, and you have like you have the Greater Heal now, the changed Greater Heal. You have the Ray of Hope. You have the Prayer of Mending, which got changed, but still is required. So yeah, you just don't have the place to fit those talents in. All right, Shadow Priest. And Shadow Priest received 3 new toys, actually, like 2.5, let's say. So, Megalomania. Gain the Surrender to Madness talent. When Surrender to Madness would kill you, you are instead reduced to 35% of your max health. If you already have this talent, you may select another in the same row. Alright, so this feels like a cool talent to play around with, especially in like Battlegrounds. But realistically speaking, that talent row in PvP is like Surrender to Madness is not that strong, I would say. Like it allows you to cast while running and stuff. Yeah, but it's just I just don't there's no way you're gonna play it. I mean, it reduced you to 35%, but like yeah. It's going to be a cool Battleground talent. That's my take on it. It's going to be a cool Battleground talent. So let's move on. Siphon has been buffed. It's no longer has 10 8 it's no longer going to have 10 health. It's going to have 10% of your health from what I can see here, which means it's no longer going to die to literally anything, which makes Siphons, well, way better. If it's going to be, if that wording is correct, and it's going to be 10% of your total health. So we have how much HP we have right now? We have like 40k. So next season we're gonna have probably like 60,000. This means it's gonna have like 5,000 to 6,000 HP, which means this is going to be more than just a white hit. It's going to require like a proper global or 2, and maybe a healer is not going to be able to hit it even with 2 globals, depending on the healer you play. Basically a cool buff to Siphon. Might see more play just because of that. And now a new talent again, which is going to be Void Volley. Upon entering Void form, send a slow-moving bolt of shadow energy at a random location every 0.5 seconds for 3 seconds. It deals shadow damage to all targets within 8 yards. All right. So this feels like a meme. This feels like a meme talent, because what it's going to do is whenever you enter Void form, you are going to basically send 6 Shadow Crashes. That is a talent from Shadow Priest. And those are like little voidy balls which like go up and just crash down and do like a small airy hit, which is also used in PvP, by the way, on single target spells on top of it. Even though it's supposed to be an AoE spell, you're still using it in single target. So it is random. This also requires testing. It's probably going to look pretty cool. I should have done that and made the clip, but I still didn't. Well, I'm surely going to do a roundup of every single class before the patch hits because there's been just so much to cover at this point. So I would say this is a meme talent, especially with all the talents. Again, just like with the other classes, you have the Siphon talent, you have the Void Eruption talent, you have the Driven to Madness stuff, you have the Greater Fade, and Void Volley is going to be hard to fit in. However, if the damage is really good, and those spells throwing like if the Shadow Crashes also do a lot of damage, and as I was saying, if you play with like a Feral, which is going to do the mass rips and mass healing reductions and the bleeds everywhere, and you're a Shadow Priest and your dot damage is massively buffed, this is going to hit a lot of people like left and right, which is going to make a lot of damage, a lot of pressure. This might actually see play. Yeah, I mean it's fun. It's not necessarily very good because it might not be reliable, but it can work. It can work with like a Feral. Yeah, it can work. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. All right, that's just a wording change. That is just a wording change. And that is a new legendary effect for Necrolord Priests. Casting a Hollow summons a Cackling Chemist that gains 2% additional damage and healing each time an enemy affected by Unholy Transfusion is damaged by an ally. So this is entirely PvE legendary for Necrolord's Priests, which also was entirely PvE. Why? Because the Unholy Nova is actually a disease, which means if you're using it in PvP, it can get dispelled, which means your entire Covenant ability gets dispelled. And I know you can say that Mind Games also can get dispelled, but this is not the same. Trust me, it's not the same. This is nowhere near as strong as Mind Games and PvP. And it's surely going to make Necrolords even stronger in PvE and might be able to compete with Night Fae Shadow Priest in PvE. Because that's what they usually play, if I'm correct. So maybe that legendary alone will make will make Shadow Priest play Necrolord once again. But yeah, as usual, it's down to tuning. So let's move on. The Shadow Word Manipulation legendary has been changed. It's the one that used to be double Mind Games. Thankfully, that was changed because it felt way too strong. And this is also going to be a PvE change because let me read this one out for you. Mind Games will last an additional 3 seconds and reverse an additional 10% damage or healing. However, when Mind Games can no longer reverse healing or damage, you gain 3% crit chance for each second remaining for 10 seconds. So, when I say can no longer reverse healing or damage, this means that instead of Mind Games being dispelled, right, you either it either finished the damage portion of the spell or the healing portion of the spell. Which means it's only going to work out if people cannot actively dispel the Mind Games, which means like double DPS, for example. But again, in PvP, there's just no reason to play this, I would say. I don't know. It is very situational. Of course, if you want to min-max, depending on the comps you're going to play against, it might be okay just for the 3 seconds additional duration. So when is Mind Games not getting dispelled? When you play with like an Affliction Warlock. That is like the only time. So if you play with an Affliction Warlock and you play with the Shadow Priest and you play a Holy Priest and you play a Holy Priest with the new PvP talent of the Immune to Interrupts, now you're catching up to what I'm trying to say, right? You're gonna have the double improved Mind Games and the buffed damage from the Shadow Priest, the buffed damage from Affliction. Everybody's getting buffed. This is going to be a nightmare. And I wish you all the fun in Season 2 with those comps because, well, you're probably going to have a lot and you're going to have the revenge on all those melee cleaves from Season 1. This is, yeah. It's going to be a thing. Trust me. It's already a thing, even though this comp is not considered to be very strong. It is already a thing. All right. Let's finish things up because, no, it's already at 34. I'm sorry. I'm really trying my best to be as fast as possible. Off to Shamans, and Shamans, well, I'm not even going to make a time stop for this one because it's just Unleash Shield. It's now a 20-yard range instead of 15-yard range. We've covered this one last week. Yeah, we did. Deathbolt is now the same. Rapid Contagion is now the same. Shadow Rift is now the same. Something's interesting in those descriptions because I see no change. And Withering Bolt, the potency conduit, has been changed for like the 6th time at this point. Which means you can expect another change next week and then the week after that again. Fellow Bliss also didn't get a change. Shadowburn got a change. 1 soul shard. So Shadowburn restores 1 soul shard and refunds a charge if the target dies within 5 seconds. Instead of resetting its cooldown. Alright. Not a big deal, I guess. I don't think it's a big deal. I'm not sure. Unless resetting its cooldown gave you 2 charges again. Maybe that's what it meant. Haven't tested it before, might get changed again. If that was the case, it is a minor nerf. But at the same time, the spell got buffed, so it's still a buff regardless of what happens. And Bonds of Fel got nerfed a bit, which is a good thing, because if you saw my main channel video about Destruction Warlocks, which was the video about about 4 weeks ago, you can see that Destruction Warlocks were doing ridiculous amounts of damage on the PTR at the moment, and they could literally kill people without any cooldowns in like 4 seconds with the use of a double Chaos Bolt. The Shadow Rift, which is this new talent here, which is the one that teleports people from a place A to place B. And why this was so deadly, because you could teleport people out of those Bonds of Fel, which means you do the Chaos Bolts, you do the Shadow Fury, you place a portal, then you press the Bonds of Fel, you port them out, the Bonds of Fel explode, and they die. Yeah. I've covered it on the main channel. You can definitely see that combo out, and it was super deadly. It's still going to be super strong, but it's probably a very good nerf because it really hit hard. It really did. All right, off to Warriors. And the Warbringer got buffed. Their new talent from last week or 2 weeks ago got buffed to 15 yards instead of 10. This means it's now 5 yards less sucky, but it's probably still not going to see any play. The only time it would play Warbringer at this point is if like you played RBGs like a tank or like a Fury Warrior for like big jumps with a flag, and you're just charging people to root them and then run straight past them, right? But that is also like a kind of a meme scenario. So yeah, they're just having fun, I guess. All right, and we are at 38 minutes. Woohoo, team, we made it. Thank you for watching then. I am now gonna go and head back to bed as I was heading before. And yeah, probably see you. I'll try to do this PTR build next week again, which is going to be, it's going to come out, it's going to be June 2nd. We'll see, because it is going to be TBC release, and I plan on going in hard at least for the first couple days, because TBC was probably my all-time favorite expansion. A lot of people started out in TBC. It is also the first expansion I've actually started playing. It is the expansion of PvP, expansion of arenas, the beginning of the arenas. And no, I will not play a Paladin, at least not at the beginning, because I don't want to be as bad as I was 15 years ago or however long that was. I really don't remember anymore. Actually, I do. It was 2007? 8? Yeah, it was 2007. It came out in 2007, which is 14 years ago. All right. Because I'm going to be having this video is going to be too long. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Have a lovely day, night, or wherever or whatever time you're going to be watching me ramble about this stuff. And I definitely should not ramble for this long. Bye-bye.